What's going on YouTube? Flashy here and welcome back to another Destiny 2 video. Today's build is all about Strand, stacking infinite woven mail, suspending massive groups of enemies, and playing around severing rounds and tangles. But most importantly, this Strand Hunter build focuses on what I think is the most fun component of this subclass, and that is the grapple and powered melee. You're gonna see nothing but Strand explosions everywhere, and it just looks so awesome. Before we get into it, be sure to leave a like on the video. It helps out the channel a ton, and hit subscribe so you get notified of new Destiny 2 videos here. But now let's get into the build, starting with the subclass, of course. First up, our super, and our only option is Silk Strike. For the dodge, I'm going to be using Marksman Dodge. However, honestly, we're not going to be using our dodges for dodging purposes, and you'll see what I mean in a second. Triple jump for our jump. Our only melee option is Threaded Spike. And of course, our grenade is going to be grapple, as that's what this build is all about. And for our aspect, Strand only has two options, so we'll be taking them, and those are going to be Widow's Silk, which gives us an additional grenade charge, and grapple creates a grapple tangle at the grapple point. And the second aspect is going to be Ensnaring Slam. Activate your air move to consume your class ability energy and dive to the ground, suspending all nearby targets on impact. So this is why we won't be using our dodge that much. We're actually going to be using it to suspend enemies anytime it's up. Suspend is insane right now because it doesn't matter if it's a champion or tons of ads around you. All of them just get stopped right in their track, and having that instant AoE suspend explosion is just so nice. Now moving down to the fragments, a lot of these Strand fragments are really good, but the four that I picked I feel like suit this particular build the best. And that first fragment is going to be Thread of Rebirth. Strand weapon final blows have a chance to create a threadling. We're using Strand weapons, so might as well get a threadling to do some extra damage and ad clear. The second fragment is going to be Thread of Transmutation. While you have woven mail, weapon final blows create a tangle, and we're going to have woven mail up all the time, which greatly reduces non-precision damage that we take. Thread of Propagation, powered melee final blows grant your Strand weapons unraveling rounds, and with unraveling rounds you'll see these little seeker projectiles zooming around the room attacking enemies. And finally, Thread of Generation, dealing damage generates grenade energy, again just really trying to get that grapple back as much as possible. So we have our subclass set, but before we get into the weapons and armor, it's important to look at the seasonal mods we can use that will beef up our Strand build by quite a bit. First up, we have authorized mods Strand, reducing armor energy costs of mods affecting Strand from 3 down to 1, and we'll also be grabbing the grenade version of that as well. Next, we want to grab Untangler. Destroying a tangle with a Strand weapon suspends targets damaged by the explosion. And after that, we can grab Allied Unraveling. Rapid final blows with Strand weapons grants your weapon unraveling rounds. So now our powered melee, as well as rapid Strand weapon kills, are giving us unraveling rounds. Counterweave is great too, which is when you or a member of your fire team stuns or defeats a champion, you gain energy for your least charged Strand ability. And finally, Threaded Blast. Destroying a tangle with a Strand weapon creates a larger and more damaging explosion. Guys, do not sleep on tangles right now. They are insane. The damage output, the suspend, and how easy it is to make them makes them such a deadly piece of your arsenal that you really want to get used to using. Anytime you see a tangle, you either want to be picking it up, or if it's near enemies, shooting it with your Strand weapon, and it is just so good. So now that we've completely buffed up our Strand weapons and abilities with our subclass and seasonal mods, it's time to look at what weapons we can use. And honestly, it goes without saying, we're going to be wanting to use Strand weapons in this build, and even though Strand is still very new, there are some really nice compatible weapons in this game that can get pretty strong. And as with all my build videos, I'll be giving you guys a few examples based on my personal recommendations and what I've been using with this build. And first up, and my number one personal recommendation, is going to be the new exotic sidearm, the Final Warning. With the intrinsic trait All at Once, holding down the trigger marks targets within range and loads multiple bullets which fire in a burst with increased stability on trigger release. Hitting a marked target with a fully charged burst will unravel them. However, it's also important to notice the weapon perk Pick Your Poison. Hip firing is going to give you tracking and increased body shot damage, but aiming projectiles have greatly increased velocity and deal extra crit damage. I pretty much always aim down sights with this sidearm. The damage is just absolutely insane, and you're hitting so many enemies at once while also unraveling them and severing them. This thing is just an absolute beast with any Strand build. Some other great primaries that I would recommend are the Immortal SMG, and I know some of you, especially PvP players, might be wincing by hearing that, but Saint 14 is actually selling a really cool roll that has hatchling on it. Precision final blows spawn a threadling. Really good synergy here on a really great SMG. The new Root of Nightmares raid weapons, Rufus's Fury and Michael's Reverence, are also really great primary slot weapons for this build, especially if you have some solid rolls. And then for the heavy slot, a really simple weapon to get that works great is the new Circular Logic Heavy Machine Gun. I've been loving heavy grenade launchers this season, and the new Root of Nightmares heavy grenade launcher, Caraxxus's Distress, has been really fun to use. But mostly for this build, we're just going to be using our exotic sidearm, our grapple-powered melee, as well as our super. So really any Strand heavy or even special weapons that you might have are going to work great. When looking at the stats, the ones I would recommend the most is definitely Resilience at tier 10 for for increased survivability. When you pair resilience with woven mail, it makes you pretty tanky as a hunter, which is really nice. You don't get that often. And then secondary discipline to get our grapple back as much as possible. And if you still have leftover stats to put in somewhere, I would recommend going mobility as a hunter. It also gives you access to that suspend move much more often. I really just focus on resilience and discipline here. For our exotic armor piece, we're going to have to grab the brand new hunter exotic Certarachne's Facade. Good luck saying that 3 times fast. With the armor perk Acrobat's Focus, gain woven mail when activating grapple, increase flinch resistance while woven mail is active. So this helmet is how we're having woven mail procced all the time. Between having 2 grapple charges and tangles being everywhere for a free grapple, you really should pretty much always have that grapple up. And each time we use it, we get woven mail for 10 seconds. As you near the end of that timer, you just simply press grapple again, get that woven mail reset back to 10 seconds, and rinse and repeat. Oftentimes when I'm using this build, I'll just look at my feet, hit the grapple button just to get that woven mail. I won't even be using the grapple for its purpose. I'm just using it for the woven mail. So that's a good little tip there, so you're not grappling into enemies all the time. But now to look at the armor mods we'll be taking, starting with the helmet. Honestly, any combination of a lot of these are really good, but I tend to run heavy ammo finder and the heavy ammo scout, especially in harder endgame activities, and then as well as strand siphon for rapid strand weapon final blows create an orb of power. On the gauntlets, I like to grab grenade kickstart, so when we use our grapple, it automatically regens some of that grapple energy. And heavy-handed, your powered melee final blows create orbs of power. And again, that powered melee is from our grapple punch, so you'll always be doing this move and stacking up tons of orbs with it. Moving to the chest piece, really simple. I just grab strand reserves to increase the amount of ammo we carry for strand weapons. And then some of these resistances just depending on what activity I'm running. Interestingly enough, I found that concussive dampener is really good because it reduces AoE damage, and woven mail is great for already reducing AoE damage as well. So stacking these gives even more tankiness as a hunter. On the legs, I like to grab strand holster, gradually reloads your stowed strand weapons over time, and a double copy of Innervation reduces grenade cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. And finally on the hunter cloak, I like to take Reaper. After using your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns an orb of power, and Distribution reduces all ability cooldowns when using your class ability near targets. So overall with this build, we're basically just a strand machine. Everything is either going to be suspended or unraveled. Our grapple is giving us insane mobility while covering us in woven mail to reduce damage. The grapple is also giving us access to the powered melee, which is going to create orbs and burst down any enemies in front of us, while also granting our weapons unraveling rounds. And we have access to a very broken instant AoE suspend button to stop any enemies, including champions, right where they stand. I've been really loving this build lately. The blend of mobility and tankiness and green explosions makes this a really big contender for one of the most fun builds of this season of Destiny 2. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comments if you decide to try this out and tell me what you think. If you're interested in the appearance customization I use for this build, that is on screen now if you want to screenshot it. And I'll also leave the dim link in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.